Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. And welcome back to another episode of Reviews Without Remorse. This is episode number 5 already. I am Joe, and as always, my good buddy Dave. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, not much, man. How are you doing?
Good, good. So on today's episode, we are going to talk about a new movie that came out, a remake, which apparently broke box office records. I will reminisce about my favorite Irish movie, and Dave will tell us a little bit about the new series, his preliminary thoughts on the new series, Iron Fist.
That's right.
And then we will get on to our main topic, which actually is kind of interesting because this is going to be the format of this podcast. Even though we've sort of spent 4 episodes already kind of just winging it and doing our own thing and having a good time. Basically, we're going to discuss films that we've already done our video reviews on. And our first series that we're going to get into, apropos because it basically has kicked off one of the biggest blockbuster universes that ever was, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So today we're going to discuss Iron Man, the very first Iron Man.
But let's talk about the bad news.
Bad news, okay,
What
go ahead.
the fuck is wrong with you people?
Look at her. What if she is the one? The one who'll break the spell?
$170 million opening weekend for a remake of Beauty and the Beast? Really, world? Really? I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Really, North America? Really? The hell, man?
I'll tell you, listen, I'm gonna play devil's advocate this time, and I'm gonna cut this some slack, and here's why.
You make
First
me
of
ill.
all, listen, I've got remake fatigue as bad as everybody else, if not worse. Trust me, I would really love to see Hollywood come up with an original idea, an original story once in a while, and stop rehashing everything that's not nailed down, almost literally. I hear you there. In this case, with the Disney redos, I'm going to cut it some slack for probably just one reason only.
Oh, this is going to be good.
If you look at all the Disney films, all the Disney cartoons that we're now looking back on as the holy grail of animation, here's our childhood, our very young childhood. These films, these stories are all redos of something else. All of those cartoons, Beauty and the Beast, The Jungle Book, these are all taken from material that was done prior, probably done in many different genres, definitely done as stories, as books or what have you. And they just sort of plucked all those things and put the Disney touch on it and made the cartoons out of it, and we all loved it. We ate it up, and we loved every minute of it.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, I don't see this as anything different. They're now saying, look, we can actually do these. I mean, again, Disney did some live animation films, some combinations of live action and animation, and they just did full-blown cartoons. Now they're saying, look, we could do live action versions of all of these things because of the technology, because of the things we can do that we could never do before, so let's put another fresh spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love it. I'm not, again, I mean, there's other things out there that I want to see more. Am I dying to see Beauty and the Beast? Not necessarily. My girlfriend wants to see it. I'll probably be interested in reviewing it, so I'll probably check it out. Like I said, I like The Jungle Book enough to make my top 10. Not real high on my top 10, but it was a fun movie. It was technically fascinating. I thought you're watching a series of creative choices, and I thought they were pretty well made. So again, I like I said, believe me, Ghostbusters, no. All these other remakes that they're churning out, no. Trust me, I'm with you. But these things, I kind of say, you know what? All right, go ahead. I mean, at the very least, you're not gonna have a disappointing 2 hours watching these films. I'm already hearing good things about Beauty and the Beast. The Jungle Book was good. I like the Maleficent, whatever it is.
Yeah, I didn't write the first time. Maleficent.
Yeah. No matter how many times I say it, I never get it right the first time. I thought that was really interesting. If you saw that one, that was and again, now that was probably even better because again, instead of just redoing the story that was already done, they put a different spin on you want to call it a prequel or something or other. But that was a pretty fascinating little story, and I thought the way they did that was really good. I thought that was a pretty impressive film. So the stuff that they're coming out, I didn't see the Cinderella. I have no idea. But the stuff I'm seeing so far, pretty good. I have not, again, when Disney does crummy movies, then I'll turn around and say, stop doing that. But again, they know how to do these things right. These things are good. They're not going to be Ghostbuster material. They're not going to be these other crappy, churned out, crummy things. Disney gets it right. Mm-hmm. So, you know what? Have at it.
Right. So you're telling me that this movie deserves it more than, say, Split. The split personality movie by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong that everybody seemed to like. More than Logan. It just...
Wait. When you say deserves what?
Deserves the attention and the money, for example. This made more money than Logan, than the Lego Batman movie.
But listen, Logan is not... The reason we liked this Logan is because it was not suitable for mass consumption. We don't want something that is churned out for the masses. The masses are going to go see Disney films. I don't have a problem with that. The fact that it out box offices Logan, it does not bother me at all. It's gonna outdo things like Deadpool. Trust me, if they PG-13 Deadpool down to get bigger box office, then we're gonna complain. Let Beauty and the Beast do what it wants. People are going to take their kids to see it. It's a whole different animal.
But I don't like the, you and I both know that box office dollars equals aha to people in Hollywood. Like, this is the zeitgeist. This is what people are looking for. Yes. Do I really want them to now just go back? I mean, what's next? They're going to remake West Side Story. It's like, oh, look, this musical from the past, brought people to the theaters. Let's remake West Side Story. Let's remake, I don't know musicals. Excuse me. I don't know musicals as well as anybody else, but I'm sure if my ex was here, she would probably go through it, verbatim. But here's a good one. Let's remake Xanadu. Let's remake Grease, which they kind of already did with that abysmal TV show that they did. This is the wrong message to be sending to Hollywood. We want more La La Lands. We want more Rogue Ones. We want more, shit like that. Like, good quality shit. More Arrivals. For God's sakes, give me more fucking movies like Arrivals. But no. This is the message.
I completely hear what you're saying, and I'm like I said. I mean, I'm probably just playing devil's advocate just for the sake of being the guy to kind of, like I said, they're different animals. If it was more of an apples to apples comparison, I'd again, like if we were talking about Ghostbusters again. Now I didn't really go on my tirade about Ghostbusters when it came up before, but I might as well do it now. When that first Ghostbusters trailer came out, already I was just sick to my stomach. And why? Is it because it's women? No. That was the only creative part about it, frankly. The only creative spin they put on it was that they decided to put females in these parts. That was the part that was creative. What was not creative was the lame... That trailer from beginning to end, the way it starts out with the lettering and the little piano music, it's like the guy who's making this trailer could phone that in. He knows how to make a trailer. Oh, I'll start it this way, little build up, little this, and then before you know it, the theme kicks in. The jokes were terrible in that. The jokes were awful. It was a retread of things that had already been done. Instead of piggybacking off of what had already been done, they're going to redo it, do the same thing over again with different characters. The latest SNL alumni, which I'm sorry is not nearly as funny as the likes of Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Dan Aykroyd. I'm sorry. Seriously, watching these two films side by side just makes you... Again, I hate to sound like an old fart.
Get off my lawn.
But it makes me pine for the old days when we actually had funny people on that show doing funny things. I mean, here we seriously, we get the token black lady going, oh, hell no, smacking the token fat girl, and she goes, ow, that's gonna leave a mark. This is what's funny now. This is the funniest thing they can come up with. And then she goes, the power of penny compels you. They're really doing... That's like when we used to see comics doing, like, Nixon impressions, like, into the 80s and 90s. It's like, guys, how many decades ago was that? It's tired. And they were doing The Exorcist. The Exorcist is, like, 40 years old.
Yeah.
I don't even think anybody today, that generation they're trying to appeal to, even knows what that is. That to me is an example of stop pulling stuff out of the drawers to figure out what can we do over again. That's an example of a bad remake. No reason to do that. Like I said, the Disney stuff, I'm much more willing to give that a pass because, again, Disney does it better. They know how to do decent quality movies. You will not walk out of there disappointed, even if it's not your thing. When I saw the very first Beauty and the Beast, I don't know how I got dragged to seeing that in the theater, because again, seeing Disney movies in the theater was I was like in my early 20s, I think, when that came out. So I don't really remember how I got roped into seeing it, but when I'm watching, I was saying, wow, I was just really impressed with it. Saying just on the visual and the storytelling alone, you're just very impressed.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I know if I see this film, it's going to be different. Is it going to be as good? Probably not, but I seriously doubt it's going to be a bad way to spend your ticket dollars. You know, again, like, are the likes of Logan's and Arrivals going to get pushed to the side for more of this sort of schlock? Maybe. But if it's quality schlock, I don't mind. Like I said, if the Ghostbusters had a better idea, if there was a better cast, if the jokes were fresher, then we wouldn't have been as angry with it as we were. It's not just the fact that they're redoing old stuff. It's that they're redoing it badly. So in the case of decent remakes, I don't know. Like I said, I'll save my ire for the likes of Ghostbusters when they start. Again, I'm sure somebody's chomping at the bit for somebody to die so they can do Back to the Future again.
Fucking A, yeah. They both gotta die. They both have to die before that'll happen. Because they both said that they would.
And when that day comes, I'll be the first one to be like, hell no, we are not doing that. We're not remaking this. Again, why redo it?
Oh, can't you see Zac Efron as Marty McFly?
Oh, just the idea of it. Oh.
Hey, what's this?
What's what?
Have you got soul? If so, the world's hardest working band is looking for you. Contact Jay Rabbit.
I'm putting a band together.
This is, as you know, or this was St. Paddy's Day weekend, so I was really lucky. I got to watch my all-time favorite Irish movie, and I got a lot of favorites. I have a lot of Irish. Yeah, I'm Irish. In case nobody knows this, I happen to be Irish.
What?
Irish American heritage, and love my St. Paddy's Day, as most of my friends will tell you. Every St. Paddy's Day, I got to drum up the classics. This year, I was very fortunate because Netflix got one of my all-time favorites, The Commitments.
That's what you got to measure up to, lads.
Well, maybe we're a little white.
If you have not seen The Commitments, I highly recommend it. First of all, this was kind of, it was before Friends. You know what I mean? It was probably a little before Seinfeld, a little before Friends, and it's kind of got that,
1991.
Yeah, the early 90s, cracking jokes and busting. It's a little corny when you look at it today.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, though, it is so infectious. It is basically about a couple kids in Dublin, the north side of Dublin, which is, the more impoverished side. These are not the kids with the silver spoons. Working class people, young people, and they try to make a band, and they make a soul band. The one says soul is the music of the people, the music of the working class, so they come up with their band, and it's so great because there's a word that gets tossed around when you take a film class, mise-en-scène. And basically that's kind of like, for lack of a better way to say it, it's sort of the tone and the theme that a film takes on. This one happens to be about music, so everybody in the film, whether they're involved with this or not, you usually sort of get their taste in music. Everybody's got a comment about their favorite music and their favorite musician and the kind of music they like, and everybody gets into the whole music thing. And, in that respect, it's just so incredibly infectious, and the soundtrack is phenomenal. They really do. They pull out, stuff from Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, that kind of stuff, and they do it in a modern way. The lead singer is phenomenal, and it's just so great. And again, it's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of spirit. You can tell that the kids who are sort of in this film are probably not. They were probably musicians instead of actors, so a lot of the line deliveries are a little funny, or like I said, the jokes sort of come off a little wooden or planned or whatever. But they all work. They land. It's very infectious because you can sort of get behind this kind of young, scrappy group because, again, you see their work. that they got a tough life. The area. This is not the rolling green hills of The Quiet Man. This is the grimy streets of the slums of Dublin. So you see the rough life. You see where they come from. So when they make it work, it's very infectious. It's and like I said, the soundtrack is phenomenal. You just love listening to the music. The soundtrack to this is awesome. So there you go. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix now. It's called The Commitments. It's a great film. It's and don't worry about St. Paddy's Day, because this is something you can watch anytime.
Hi, I'm Danny Rand. I've been away a long time.
Let's go. You don't belong here.
I'm Danny Rand. Guys, I just want to talk.
In my case, I also did some Netflixing, but I instead did the entire 13 episodes of Iron Fist in less than 3 days.
You saw the whole thing?
All 13 fucking episodes.
Wow. Good for you. Good for you. I'm lagging behind. I'll get there, but I'm jealous. Go ahead.
Okay. So, for people who do not know, Iron Fist is part of, you could call it the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I kind of call it the Marvel Netflix Cinematic Universe, because it's connected in the respect that events that happen in the movies have somewhat of an effect on these shows, but they don't affect the movies in any way. The movies are the Holy Grail, and these shows just kind of live off of their backs. And it joins Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. And he is Iron Fist. Danny Rand is the last element that becomes the Defenders, which, if the Avengers were put together to take care of all the shit that's happening from intergalactic crap, the Defenders are the people that are actually the grunts on the ground taking care of the shit that is huge but not quite Avenger-worthy. And this is the story of the Iron Fist. The Iron Fist was a very popular comic book character from the 70s. Kung Fu master with a flaming, or at least in the case of the TV show, a glowing fist that is basically iron and has supernatural elements and everything like that. Now, because Joe hasn't watched it yet, I'm not going to really delve into spoilers, so I'll just give you my thoughts on it generally before we get into the next part. And my feelings about the show are, I enjoyed it. It is not the strongest entry of the entire Marvel series. Daredevil is still the best show as far as I'm concerned from that series, but it isn't the strongest. And I can't necessarily blame... I don't blame the writers or anything like that, because, let's face it, Daredevil's a pretty simple character to get. Kid, blinded by radiation, gets superpowers, boom, done. Jessica Jones was... I would put it more in the realm of Jessica Jones, because here's a character that really nobody outside of comics knows anything about. So they had to go more in depth into building the character up and explaining the background and the mysticism of it and his connection to the hand. And yes, the hand plays a part in this. And it's enjoyable, but it's slow. It's slower. And they didn't really establish... It took a while for them to start establishing themselves. The first couple of episodes were a little bit of a chore to get through, but the rest kind of rolled out to what I thought was a satisfying ending and a good stop point for, and coming up soon, The Defenders on Netflix. I recommend it simply because if you're going to watch The Defenders and everybody's going to frickin' watch The Defenders, you should probably know who the hell this character is.
So, sounds like a recommend, but not exactly a strong recommend. Well, here's a question for you, because I wasn't crazy about the first season of Daredevil. I had a hard time getting through it. I thought that was very slow. Mm-hmm. But once I got to the second season, suddenly I was like, wow, there it is. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's kind of similar? Do you think, is this not as good even as the first season of Daredevil?
It's on par in that respect. But because I was familiar with the character of Daredevil and I really liked Charlie Cox in the part of Matt Murdock, I was able to endure more of the first season. Finn Jones is a passable Danny Rand. Frankly, the shining spot of the show was, oh goodness, I forget the actress's name, Jessica Hartwick, I want to say. But she plays the part of Colleen Wing. And she was fucking awesome. Not only doing her own stunts, which it was pretty obvious that she was doing a lot of her own stunts, but just the way she played her character. And that says something. I mean, think of it this way: she's like the anti-Karen. Okay, I love the Daredevil show, but I don't feel like, and I can't figure out if it's the actress's fault or if it's the writer's fault. I don't feel the connection with Karen Page that I should feel.
Agreed.
But I feel that with Colleen Wing. So I was very, very happy to see that they at least got her right. And the actor who played Danny didn't really start getting good until around the 7th or 8th episode. And then it was, and I think, again, that could just be bad writing, because once he was there, he was damn good. He was enjoyable. But he was a weak character as compared to Colleen. And I'll just that if anybody asks about the show, it's like, Colleen is awesome. Danny takes a little getting used to, but you do get used to him eventually.
It's I when I saw the first trailers for Iron Fist, I kind of had the same feeling. Like I thought that was an odd. He didn't seem like Iron Fist to me. He seemed more like a guy who you'd want to have a beer with after work or go camping with in Colorado. Not so much. That's not so much. Iron Fist I kind of thought would be a little sleeker. I don't know exactly what the word I'm looking for, but like a younger Cumberbatch would have done Iron Fist pretty well.
He has to get rid of that beard. The beard is not helping. He can keep the goddamn curly hair. The beard just looks completely wrong for Danny Rand, for me at least.
Yeah, I kept thinking, like, even when I saw the first trailer when he shows up, I thought he was going to do like a Doctor Strange, where as he kind of snaps back into character, the beard's gonna go and he's gonna whatever. But I guess not. I don't know. I'm not really getting it myself either.
They made some interesting.
I haven't seen it yet. So.
They made some interesting choices. All told, I was not as big a fan of Iron Fist in the comics, but I liked the way that story was told, and they made tremendous callbacks to the early days of the comics. I did a little research into Iron Fist before the show came on to see, okay, let's see the origin of this and let's see how they do it. And they got it pretty close. It's not exact. And they've got a couple of setups coming as well, which I kind of enjoyed. And all told, like I said, it was good, but not Frank Castle good, not Cottonmouth good, not Wilson Fisk good, not Kilgrave good. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't feel a tremendous threat from the villains in this as I did in the other ones. It's hard. Once you have Wilson Fisk, any villain that follows Wilson Fisk is just not going to come close.
Well, we'll see what happens. Like you said, this is sort of his just segue into the Defenders, so I guess we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I tell you, I would really love to see a little more of a tie-in with the cinematic universe, because again, they make it pretty clear that these are in the same universe. A little crossover, a little cameo wouldn't hurt. It would be kind of nice if they kind of tip their hat a little bit to the little guys on screen, because again, they're doing a lot of good work. On the those Netflix shows.
And if anything, they're keeping the name Marvel into everybody's eyes, so that when the next big Marvel movie comes out, it's like, yes, it's tough. There's a political infighting thing. We could do a whole fucking episode just on the shit that I've read about that stuff. But
right?
Oh god, yes. There was huge fallout, to the point that Feige got the head of Disney to basically break the divisions. So there's a television and a cinematic division, and they send each other emails with what they're doing.
Really?
Yep. But they all default to the cinematic universe. So they wanted to do an the people on the TV side wanted to do an Inhumans movie. So it got forced onto the list of up and coming Marvel movies. Once the division happened, suddenly the Inhumans was gone.
I remember that. I remember that was on the docket.
Yep, and now the Inhumans is becoming a TV show. So yeah, there's some interesting shit going on there that we may never find out about for many years. But I've kept up with some of it, and there's definitely there's stories there. We'll have to discuss that some other time.
Okay, all right, very good.
But, whereas they had the separation of the universe, they sure did seem to do pretty good at the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, didn't they?
No one's allowed to talk, is that it? You can't talk?
No, you intimidate them.
Good God, you're a woman.
Is it better to be feared or respected? And I say, is it too much to ask for both?
Yeah, so let's talk about our main subject, Iron Man. The very first Iron Man, and frankly, we throw around a lot of credit. I'll start. I want you to kick this off, because I really would like to start by talking about the the origin and how faithful it was. Like I know some things, but I'd rather let you run with that. Okay. But I just want to say this: I think as far as we like to throw around a lot of credit for kicking off the Marvel Universe. I think one of the most underrated people in that has to be Jon Favreau.
Yes,
I think Jon Favreau took this property, which probably no one really thought to do anything with, because again, you talk about B-list, C-list characters. Iron Man, even among the Avengers, what is he, like number 3 maybe? Like, you gotta figure everybody knows Captain America, everybody knows Thor. Oh yeah, Iron Man.
Tony Stark makes you feel he's a cool exec with a heart of steel.
As Iron Man, all jets ablaze, he's like and like with repulsor rays. Amazing armor,
That's Iron Man.
a blazing bomber.
No one saw this coming, and I think this blew people away. And I think that honestly is where we got to thank the whole universe for. But
pretty much. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. First appeared in Tales of Suspense number 39 in March of 1963. Anthony Edward Tony Stark, a.k.a. the Iron Man. This was actually a movie that was trying to get made for many, many years. And was the result of frustration on the part of Marvel and their properties just never coming out the way that they were hoping. This came out of the frustration with trying to get movies made. I mean, at one point, Tom Cruise really, really wanted to play Tony Stark. And that wouldn't have been a bad choice, frankly. But for at the time, Marvel had sold the rights to their mutant characters to 20th Century Fox, sold the rights to Spider-Man. Well, it didn't sell the rights as much as the rights eventually landed at Columbia Pictures, eventually bought by Sony. And they really wanted to try to do something that was more faithful. And they had some directors in it and stuff like that, and some places like Paramount and stuff like that. They were kind of interested. And it was actually Kevin Feige who managed to say, you know what? Why not just do it ourselves? Why don't we just start a movie studio and just do it ourselves? This way we control it. And the CEO of Marvel at the time, a man named Ike Perlmutter, very, very frugal man, managed to scrape together and say, okay, I'll give you a budget, see what you can do with it. And that little nest egg built a billion-dollar empire. One of the first things he did was he hired Jon Favreau and told Favreau, he basically gave Favreau a checklist of the things that he wanted to have happen, and the rest was up to him. And that might have been the smartest thing he ever did. Favreau, in turn, got the amazing Stan Winston to come in and design the Iron Man suit. He pushed, and this is actually a funny little story. He pushed for Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark because no company would insure him because of all of his shenanigans from back in the 90s and early 2000s. And eventually he got what he wanted, and frankly, I can't imagine the universe having succeeded as well as it had if it hadn't been for Robert Downey Jr. at this point. He became the center of this universe, and it was mocked. It was completely mocked. Variety, all the mags and stuff like that were talking about, oh, Marvel doing their own thing with their own B-list character. And man, did they hit that fucker out of the park. They found a way not only to remain pretty damn faithful to the origins of Tony Stark and the Iron Man, but make it accessible for people that aren't comic book fans.
Right. You know, it's amazing, too. Just, we briefly touched on, I think I said in my first podcast, I said, you know, when it comes to the DC fanboys and the Marvel fanboys kind of battling it out, and, you know, again, Marvel up until that point had given us nothing but just, I mean, failure after failure. So for this film to come out and hit a home run, it was a long time coming. So this was something like, this was unexpected. It really was unexpected. And I personally love, you talked about the faithfulness to the origin. I love what they did with the origin. And I'll do another shameless cross promotion. I said this not long ago about Casino Royale. Casino Royale, the 2006 film, is based on a book that is literally over 50 years old. And it's about the villain in the novel was raising funds for Cold War operatives. Okay, this is in the early days of the Cold War. How do you translate that today? Well, that same banker, villain is now doing the same thing for terrorists. So, and again, you're still on the world stage funding people that are sort of behind the scenes manipulating world events. And I thought that is a perfect way to update that story. Same here. When I found out that Tony Stark was kidnapped or, held hostage in Vietnam.
That was the original story. In Vietnam, that was the original story. He was captured in Vietnam.
Right. And then when they updated it today to a Middle Eastern environment, a Gulf conflict, Afghanistan, I don't know if they specifically say where they are, but it's in the Middle East. Again, what a perfect, that is where the troubles are today. What a perfect segue. I mean, again, you've taken almost the exact story, almost verbatim, and just plopped it into modern times, and it works. Not only does it work perfectly, but it works even better because of not only what I love about the Iron Man and frankly the whole Marvel universe is sort of playing off this. We're living in a time where technology has really caught up. We are seeing real things, real technology actually happening that we're kind of going, wow, whoever thought we'd be seeing this or that, and the technology and the stuff they can put on screen. So between the CGI and real life technology advancements, when you see Iron Man, you start to say, I buy that. I actually sort of buy that can happen. I mean, literally, not literally today, actually, but it's not that much of a leap of faith. It's not that much of a stretch to say, you know what? A smart guy like that with billions at his disposal, why not? So the way they did it, and again, I love when he comes out of the cage and he's sort of that original Iron Man look.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how cool is that? How awesome was that?
Such a brilliant design by Stan Winston again, and Stan Winston's crew. Just the original was so clunky, and they took that clunkiness and they kind of brought it up a little bit because it's like, well, let's talk real world. He doesn't have a microprocessor or anything like that. He's got to do this and so on and so forth. They really tried to ground it, like, excuse me, like somebody at some point is gonna watch that movie and is either going to make or has already made an outfit similar to the Mark I Iron Man armor that was made in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's large, it's huge. There's plenty of ways that you can put in hydraulics and actuators into that to actually make that work. They grounded it so well and still managed to take it into the fantastic without going overboard, as far as I'm concerned.
I totally agree. Again, I mean, seriously, when he first walked out of the cave with that costume, and you were like, and you said that is the original Iron Man costume, and again, looking like he made it out of tin cans. I mean, it's so funny. It's almost like it's funny that the original comic writers, artists had the presence of mind to sort of make that costume the way they did. Like, how easy would it have been to just sort of draw like a Spider-Man, skin-tight thing and say, this is all metal, because, what's the difference? But they made it like that, clunky, so that when you do it today and you say, here was the very first tried an Iron Man costume with nothing but scraps, that's what it would look like. I mean, how perfect is that?
Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby was the original designer, and just translated so well. And well acted. You had a relatively compelling villain. You had an okay love interest. I'm not a big Gwyneth Paltrow fan, but we don't have to go into that right now. Mm-hmm. But, it didn't fall into the tropes that you would expect, a superhero movie to fall into. Okay? When he came out in the red and gold, it was like, we're a motherfucking superhero movie, and we don't fucking care what you think.
Exactly.
And I loved that.
Oh, my God.
I love that. Instead of like X-Men, it's like, oh, no, leather. We're going to wear leather. Yeah,
Right. Seriously, the part when he's doing the costume and he says, throw a little hot rod red in there, you're just like, yes, there you go. Like, boom. You know what I mean? Like, that was it. And again, too, I went on a tirade last week. I said, you know what? Costumes. I don't care what anybody says. You put them in the right costumes, people will love it. And seriously, you could almost go down the line. Mm-hmm. You show me a weak superhero movie and a good superhero movie, I guarantee the good one has the costume every time. And I'll tell you something, too. Another reason why is I have a tendency to really like when we talk about a superhero series, I tend to gravitate towards the first one. And the reason is that the first one usually has that original Rocky story. Like, that original character arc usually happens in the first one. Where, something bad happens, somebody's down on his luck or something, and they have to sort of pull themselves out of a mess. And usually, like, Batman Begins is one of my favorite examples. It's usually sort of through the creation of this superhero persona that they lift themselves out of a bad situation. You know, and what's interesting about the Tony Stark arc is that he's not unlikable in the beginning. He's actually very likable. He's a very likable character, but you still see where his character is a little flawed. So when he does sort of have a change of heart and starts to see things differently and starts to change his ways, he still sort of ends up almost like, you know, more Tony Stark than he was before. Because now, when he gets to the end and he's standing with the cards and he says, "I am Iron Man." Like, it's like, boom, there you go. Like, he didn't become a different person. He didn't sort of throw his old persona or say I was a rotten person back then. But you saw the growth. You saw the, you know, and again, the creation of that character, the creation of the Iron Man as a persona is part of that growth. And it's almost like by the time they come together at the end, he's full circle. And again, I just love how they did that in this film. I love how he had to dig himself out of a bad situation, and he grows as a person. So it's not just a superhero story. And again, I love when they get the origin right, but sometimes the origin really lends itself to a personal story. And I think that's sort of another reason why this film is so great.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
Welcome home, sir.
Put up the scanner, will you? What happened over there?
I had my eyes open.
I want to protect the people I put in harm's way.
It truly, it's the template for the modern, you know, it used to be for us at least, and for a lot of people, the template for a good superhero movie was the 1978 Superman with Christopher Reeve. That was the template. You had to follow that particular template. You had to introduce the character. You had to make people like the character. The character had to grow into the part. And the whole thing was, the minute they showed up that first time with the cape and everything like that, that was supposed to be like the big moment of the movie, more so than anything else. And this sort of follows that, but takes it into a more modern way, because it still manages to find a way to. Because let's talk about a fundamental fact here. I love Superman's costume. Superman's costume on Christopher Reeve looks great, but it still looks kind of silly. All right, let's. Hear me out. Even for the 70s, you know, it's bright red. It's, you know, it's those bright colors. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with making subtle changes to the costume so that it fits in a more modern era. I think there are easily ways to do it. I also think there are ways to go too much in either direction. And, you know, a movie like Superman the movie, I think that costume would not, pun not intended, fly today, because it sticks out. In that time frame, it worked. But today, in today's settings, it would stick out like a sore thumb. Everything today is different. Fashion and all that stuff, it's too. It needs to be muted. It's the only thing. The red underwear he still needs. I still think he needs the red underwear. But it's a part of me agrees a little bit. I wanted to be sure that we all know a little bit with the design of Superman's costume in the new flicks, simply because it fits in with modern design. I still think it's too muted. I think they went a little too far the other way.
Agreed. Yeah, well, yeah. I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly that they went too far. You know, there's a scene in The Man of Steel when the part when they're in the white room when he's getting interrogated and he's in the cuffs.
Yes.
And there's a two-way mirror there. Mm-hmm. When you watch that scene, they're in a brightly lit room and his costume is so oddly dark. It's almost black. It's really weird when you watch that.
Yeah.
Go back and look at it and you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, I really disagree, and I'm going to tell you. And again, like we talked about the Wolverine costume, I agree with what you're saying in the idea that you have to sort of take it to the next level. And I think if they had done something, again, like, do I want yellow spandex with the tiger stripes? No. But the brown and orange costume, I thought, could have gotten pulled off. Again, if they sort of had made it more of like a samurai armor outfit, then I could have seen it. I mean, when they open that case in that cut scene, you see that mask. You're just dying for him to put that on. I think it could have happened. And again, and I think Deadpool sort of opened the doors in a lot of ways. Deadpool took the next step and just said, he's got white eyes in the comics. We're doing white eyes. We're not explaining how this works, but he's got the white eyes, and where you can't. Again, they don't explain that. But that's a character that breaks the fourth wall, so he's allowed to sort of cut some corners. I wouldn't expect Wolverine to do that. But I do think they could have pulled that costume off, and I still say the same thing about Superman. You don't need dark, muddy colors to make it. I think the reason why superheroes are superheroes, why we get excited, is because of these big, bright costumes. When you look at the Wonder Woman thing coming out, frankly, the only reason why that trailer even looks semi-decent is because they've allowed her to have some bright color.
Yeah, shocking.
Would I want to see the Linda Carter? Well, yes, I would, but
completely different reasons than Wonder Woman.
Totally different reasons there. Do I think that outfit could be used today the same way? No. I mean, I'll concede that, and they would definitely need to give her something more practical. I get that. What they've done, though, I think is pretty good. But I think the bright colors is one of the reasons why you say, thank you, here we go. We got some bright color. I mean, seriously, we have some movies that want rich, bright, beautiful color palettes, yet in our superhero films, we want dark, muted, muddy gray color, and I think that it's just a wild contradiction. I don't see why dark, muted, muddy is realistic. I don't make that correlation. I don't see that as a realistic response to a comic book character, but I'm kind of getting off topic.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say just understand what I'm trying to say is that, if you're going to interpret Iron Man and make him modern but still respect his look, this is the way you do it. Because he still did have the bright, red and gold. There he was. That's easily identifiable as Iron Man to anybody who's ever picked up a comic book. The only thing I was trying to point out was that, why this is the modern template of it. I really wasn't trying to bag on the original Superman costume. That was a product of its time.
Sure.
It's as simple as that. But that time has come and gone. And weirdly, I think that Bryan Singer's take on the Superman costume that he did for Superman Returns was much more respectful of the origin than anything that Zack Snyder has done.
Go ahead, I'll get back to that, because I'm dying to comment on that as well. Because that to me is a perfect example of, again, when I saw that costume, I said, what the hell are they doing? Because, again, they want their response to, the costume's too bright, we have to dark. The cape became this kind of dark red. Everything was kind of dark colors. The underpants became these tiny little Calvin Klein ad underpants. That I was I'm like, can you that got a little uncomfortable, frankly. I thought what they tried to do with that costume, it was like they were trying to sort of split the difference. It's not quite Zack Snyder dark, but it's not Christopher Reeve either. And they kind of came up with something that was an amalgam. And I'm looking at that saying, you guys, just leave the costume alone. I mean, what I would like to see is a costume where it's, again, I like the textured. So I kind of think it's funny. All the superhero costumes now have to have a funny texture. You know what I mean? A solid color won't cut it. And ironically, I thought the only time I saw Captain America in a lame costume was in the first Avengers. And I always thought that was so weird because in the comics, they would always sort of hint at the idea that he's got a chainmail sort of a uniform on. Yet here, he's the only guy with just a solid material, and it didn't jive. I said, give him the textured stuff, whatever. Anyway.
You keep getting off my topic, you son of a bitch.
I sure do. I'm sorry.
So the upgrade is complete.
Tell you what, throw a little hot rod red in there.
My point is that this movie being the beginning of the modern age of superhero, we're not embarrassed that he's a superhero. We're not embarrassed that he has these bright colors. Yeah, we muted him just a tiny little bit, but if you picked up a comic book right now, you say, there's Iron Man. You picked up a Superman comic book right now, you'd be like, where the fuck is Superman?
Right. Exactly, yeah. And again, I don't think, we pretty much said our piece on that. Again, I think the decision to keep Iron Man's costume very faithful, even just the face mask, looked so good. And that, again, that's what gets people's blood going. When you see, how many, and again, you show me an example where they took a superhero and they made him different than the comics, and everybody, noticeably different than the comics, and people cheered. I don't see any examples of that. You show me when they did the comic where you saw something that looked just like you remember, people go crazy. Every time I get, look, if they put Wolverine in that costume, I'll guarantee, and they will. I mean, at some point,
you're feeling that, right?
They're gonna reboot X-Men, and somebody's gonna get him in the costume. Not Hugh Jackman. The next go around, I'm sure, is gonna have the costume. People are gonna love it. I guarantee it, and they're gonna say, "Boy, we probably should have done that with Hugh Jackman a couple years ago." I guarantee somebody's gonna say it.
Coming soon, Zac Efron is Wolverine.
All right, well that could happen too.
That's the dark side of that. But yes, all told, ladies and gentlemen, if you have anybody you want to thank for the modern comic book movie, it's definitely Iron Man. Ironically, Iron Man came out the same. I think Iron Man came out the same year as Batman Begins, or at least a year or so around that area. Hold on,
I think it was like I think Iron Man was like 3 years later, if I remember, because I think Batman Begins was 2005.
Yep, you're right, and Iron Man was 2008.
There you go. Boom.
Yep, but as much as I love Batman Begins, there was still that little undercurrent of, well, we're sort of a superhero movie, but not really. Which when we do our Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, we will discuss in much more detail.
Yeah, agreed. I think that is true. And Nolan definitely wanted to take it to the next level where he really wanted to ground it in the real world. And we'll get around to that. I think, and it's funny because everybody's definition of real life, is different, I guess. I'll tell you what, though, I will say this. If there's anything about this film that I'm not wild about, and it's not a criticism outright, and it doesn't detract from the film, but I kind of felt like this sort of falls into the same trap that the Incredible Hulk falls into, where the only thing we can come up with for a villain is like the same thing except bigger and badder and meaner. The Incredible Hulk, give him the same Hulk serum and he becomes the Abomination.
Yeah,
which is kind of a piss poor representation of, but we won't go there.
It's just that was not, I was not happy with that representation of the Abomination, but that's neither here nor there at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, what are you going to do with the Hulk? I mean, you got to come up with something like that he can fight. I get it. Iron Man was sort of the same thing. What are we going to do? Oh, well, Obadiah Stane will make his own costume, bigger, badder, worser. And I always kind of felt like it was kind of a clunky, like his Iron Man almost looked like the original costume, for good reason. But I said to myself, why would his kind of late in the game costume, even if it's bigger, it's slower, it's clunkier, why is he a match for Tony Stark's Iron Man? I kind of felt like Tony Stark should have taken him out with no problem. And then they even do the thing with, they fly up in the ice, which was a good callback. They set that up early, good callback, and it works. But then all of a sudden, like, he shows up again on the ground later, like nothing happened. So I'm kind of like, all right, that's probably the only thing about that film that I kind of say probably could have been a little bit better.
You could easily argue that the fact that Tony was working with his version 1 arc reactor,
true,
which Jarvis basically said on a couple of occasions, you don't have full power, blah 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 blah. That could conceivably put it on a more even scale. And even though he had been Iron Man for a couple of weeks at most, he's not the Iron Man we know today. He still wasn't experienced. And he's also Tony Stark. Tony Stark is cocky. Tony Stark's like, nah, nothing's going to defeat my shit. And then he gets smacked around a little bit and gets him rattled before he gets his head back in the game.
You know what line I love? I love the part. It's a throwaway little line, but when he starts flying up and Jarvis starts to warn him, saying, sir, when you fly up to wherever, he goes, I know the math, yada yada. That's a good example of really good writing, because A, you're giving me good Tony Stark quips, but you're also telling me what I need to know about what's going to happen in this scene. Like, it was just a little bit of foreshadowing saying, remember what's going to happen. Tony's like, I got, he gives him the snarky line and goes ahead. So the writing in that film is really good too. I just love how the whole thing is written.
Yeah. There's not a lot really to knock about the movie. Even the tiny knocks that you can give it, you can kind of almost forgive.
Yeah.
You can't say that much about the sequels, which we'll get to.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what happened there, although I have an idea. We can discuss that when we get to them. But yeah, nope. Iron Man, true classic. It is now officially 9 years old, that movie. 9 years old.
You have to wonder if Robert Downey's gonna try to outdo Hugh Jackman as playing this character as long as he possibly can.
Well, what are we talking about here? He's done 6 so far. He's up to his 6th portrayal as Iron Man with the 3 Iron Mans, the 2 Avengers, and the 1 Civil War. So that's 6 right there. You've got goodness. No, he's not gonna do it because I'm reasonably sure that Tony Stark's going to be dead before the end of Infinity War.
Okay. I agree with you that that's a good possibility. But you also have to throw in Homecoming, which is coming out soon, and you have to wonder
8,
right? And you have to wonder, and again, he's cameoed in other films too. So again, does that qualify? Yes, no, maybe. But I think
we counted Wolverine's "fuck you" in First Class as part of it, and his little cameo at the end of the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk movie. I would count it. So yeah, we could say that he's going to hit 9.
The Incredible Hulk movie.
Yeah, he cameoed in the Incredible Hulk movie.
Oh, Tony Stark cameo, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely say that would put him in the 9 category, and that would tie him with Jackman.
And I was really thinking in terms not so much in how many movies he appears in, but just how many years he holds on to the role. It's pretty. I mean, it is pretty amazing. Again, even the none of the James Bonds have ever stayed in their character as long as Hugh Jackman has played Wolverine, and possibly as long as Downey has played Tony Stark.
Well, you got to think that that's also partially the way Marvel does business. I mean, you would have 2, sometimes 3-year gaps between Bond movies. That's one thing that could definitely slow it down. Think of it this way:
right.
in an 8-year period that he's been playing, 9-year period that he's been playing Tony Stark, he has been in. Released so far, he has been in 6 movies.
Yeah.
7 if you count the cameo. So that basically means that literally translates to 1 movie a year. In Bond, that's almost impossible to do in 9 years. 9 years is 3 movies at most.
That's true. That's very true. And you're right. I mean, the way they're doing the Marvel movies, Tony, Robert Downey suits up. He's over here. He does a scene in Iron Man 4, and they send him, okay, run down the hall because they're doing Guardians of the Galaxy 3 over here, and then just run down there because they're going to do Infinity Wars 2.5 or something or other,
Not sure exactly how they're going to do it. I get the feeling my gut says that the end of Infinity War is going to be very interesting.
Okay.
All right, you got to understand, this is about the Infinity Gauntlet. For people who don't know what the Infinity Gauntlet is, it is the most powerful piece. It's the most powerful item in the universe that can be wielded by an individual as opposed to a god. Although Thanos considers himself to be a god.
Right.
It has 6 stones: time, space, power, soul, reality, and there's one that I'm fucking missing. Time, space, soul, power, reality. Oh, and mind. Mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They give you the power to control all those things. My feeling is the Reality Stone, this is wild. My theory is by the end of the Infinity War movies, the Reality Stone resets the Marvel Universe, and now you have a younger cast playing the part of Tony Stark, Captain America, and Thor.
And we just start the whole thing all over again?
No. You don't have to start all over again. They're still established characters. But you can use this as a means of explaining why they don't look the same.
So almost like the Star Trek reboot?
Sort of like that, yes. That's what I think they're going for. Because by the time Infinity War is done, Helmsworth is done. Chris Evans has already said, I've been enjoying myself, but I'm pretty much done. And Robert Downey Jr. is like, dude, I'm almost 60. Give me a fucking break. So, yeah. I mean, granted, you've got your Cumberbatch and you've got your Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that, but without the Holy Trilogy, without those 3 guys, you're not really going to be able to go on. You got to cast well. If you're going to recast those 3 characters, you got to really, 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 really cast well.
Very true.
That's my theory about the end of Infinity War. No spoilers, just a theory.
I think, since we're kind of getting into the whole Marvel Universe, but I'll rein it back a second. I do think the casting that they've had so far has really been stellar. I mean, the casting, and I was skeptical on a lot of the choices, but they really won me over in the long run. Captain America comes to mind. I was really kind of hoping for someone a little more. I think of like a younger Powers Booth. When I would think about like an old superhero type.
Yeah.
So when they got Chris Evans, I kind of thought he's a little boyish for me. I wasn't crazy about it, but you know what? He really won me the hell over. And I had, you know what? I was a little skeptical about Robert Downey for the reasons that we talked about before. I thought, first of all, I was saying to myself, this guy's been doing solid lines of coke since the 80s. He probably looks like a bloated slob by now. But so when I saw him and he actually still looked good, I was like, oh, okay. Like I don't know who... He made a deal with the devil or something or other because he still looks fine. So yeah, he pulled it off. He really did pull it off. The one I'm kind of still could take her to leave it on would be Gwyneth Paltrow. She to me is probably the weaker link of the series. I would have liked a little stronger character or a little stronger actress in that part. Mm-hmm. She holds her own, and the character is great. But like I said, I think like a tougher actress might have been
an Amy Adams.
Okay. Even the Black Widow, even Scarlett Johansson probably could have pulled that one off better. Because again, she to me is somebody who can sort of wear both hats. Like she can sort of like even the way they sort of present her in part 2 as they introduce her as Black Widow, very clever. Again, she's just kind of like the sort of smart secretary type, yet she can kick ass. I see Gwyneth Paltrow and I think of other parts where she's, a little flowery, little whatever, doing her little blog, telling moms not to do this and that and whatever.
All right.
I won't get you started on that, but
I'm not. Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of her in the part either, so I'm with you there. But let's not get it personal. Let's try to make it, simply about the part.
Absolutely. You're right. We don't bring that stuff into.
Yeah, she's just too subdued for me. I mean, I'm not expecting her to be a oh my god or anything like that, but she's just eventually Pepper Potts gets her own armor in the comic books,
right?
And they even do a throwback to that in Iron Man 3, and it didn't work for me. It really didn't work for me. But when we get to Iron Man 3, we'll discuss that in more detail.
Exactly. Anyway, I can't think of anything else about this film that we haven't really touched on yet. I think... Oh, incidentally, too, I also liked the guy who plays Rhodey in the first one. I like him better...
You liked Terrence Howard more?
Terrence Howard, yes. A little more than Don Cheadle.
But Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle, I'm not ever... the first thing I saw him in was Out of Sight.
Which was an awesome fucking flick.
Phenomenal flick.
Yeah.
Very underrated.
Was Snoopy. Yeah. He was Snoopy.
Snoopy, yeah. But, when I watched that film, remember the other guy who was his brother-in-law, who was the boxer, and he was...
We'll tussle. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yes, yeah, we're going to tussle. He, to me, was completely believable in that part, in his part. When I saw Don Cheadle, and again, I'd never seen him in anything else, but I said to myself, something tells me that this guy is a character actor who could just walk down the street after this movie and start speaking in the Queen's English or doing something else, which he kind of does in Ocean's 11, by the way. And incidentally, I have a theory about that. I think he just said, can I have an English accent in this movie? And they said, yeah, sure, do what you want. Because that's sort of how it feels to me. I don't buy him in a lot of different roles. He's a fine actor. Don't get me wrong. He's a good actor. He does whatever. But I don't buy him in certain things. So yeah, I kind of just like Terrence Howard in that film. I like their sort of
camaraderie.
Yeah, I mean they work well together. I thought that they seem like guys who I could see being pals and whatever. So I was just disappointed that he didn't come back.
That's a story we'll save for when we talk about Iron Man 2.
Fair enough.
Put a pin in that one. I'll tell you the story behind that one.
You got it. Well, which we will be doing next week, I think, right?
Yep.
As long as everything goes to plan. Next week we will talk about Iron Man 2, and then the following week will be Iron Man 3, and that'll be our Iron Man series.
All right. I got nothing else to add.
What's going on here?
Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've caught me doing.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe right now has to be the biggest thing I can ever... I mean, I'm even comparing this to Star Wars. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now is the biggest thing I've ever seen cinematically. You know what I mean? I can't think of anything. It's almost like the only thing you could really compare this to would be if you compared it to a whole other genre and say this is kind of like Westerns, like what Westerns was in like the 50s or something, where you just had... I mean, how many Marvel movies are we up to at this point?
Okay, we got 3 Iron Mans, 3 Thors, You got a Hulk. You got 3 Captain Americas. Right there, that's 10. You've got the 2 Avengers movies. You've got the 2 Guardians of the Galaxies movies. You've got Doctor Strange. That's 15 right there.
Spider-Man is coming out. That officially falls into the Marvel Comics universe.
Yeah, that'll be 16. Ant-Man. How the fuck could I forget Ant-Man?
There you go.
17 movies in 9 years.
And right, I seriously, they've almost got as many as they've got James Bond movies already.
Yeah, pretty much.
The entire James Bond franchise, which has been around since 1962, has 24 films right now. Marvel is going to outdo them in another year or 2.
Well, yeah, they've got 3 films this year. Well, actually, at the end of this year, they'll have 17. Once Thor Ragnarok comes out, that'll be 17 flicks.
And then
they've
Black
got
Panther.
3 more films. Black Panther is next year, as well as Infinity War. And there's a 3rd one that they're filming right now. Oh, Ant-Man and Wasp starts filming pretty soon. So that'll be the 3 next year.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be 20. And then the year after that will be 23. Because they're averaging like 3 films a year.
That's right. And I mean, they can be doing... And they're doing TV series on the side. I mean, and this machine is running at full steam.
Yeah, no shit. No sign of stopping at any time.
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
All right, amigo.
Coolness. That was good. That was good. Next week, we promise, ladies and gentlemen, we don't always think that everything that Marvel does is spectacular. You'll see when we do Iron Man's 2 and 3. Trust me.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, we are not blind fanboys. We will pick on things that need picking on.
Yeah. All right, sir. Then I will wish you a wonderful good night, and good night to our wonderful audience.
Same to you. Good night, people, and we will see you here next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.